Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. My name is Sean. I'm 32 years old, and I owned a small HVAC company that kept me busy 6 days a week. After years of working out of an old pickup and taking every emergency call I could get, the business was finally doing well. We had 4 trucks on the road, steady commercial contracts, and enough work booked months ahead. My wife, Miranda, was 30. She worked in human resources for a medical supply company. We had been together for 5 years and married for 3. The house we lived in belonged to me. I bought it before we got married after saving for years, and it stayed in my name. Miranda helped with utilities and groceries while I covered the mortgage and most of the bills. It worked for both of us. At least it had. Everything changed after Miranda became close with a woman from work named Lydia Brooks. Lydia had finalized a messy divorce a few months earlier and suddenly acted like she had earned a doctorate in relationships. Every conversation seemed to end with advice about finding your happiness or never settling. At first, I ignored it. Then Miranda started repeating Lydia's opinions almost word for word. You work too much. You've stopped chasing me. Marriage shouldn't become predictable. I looked at her one evening after a 12-hour day. I work because this business pays for everything we're building. You always make it about money. No, I answered. I make it about responsibility. The arguments became more frequent after that. Nothing huge, just constant. If I came home tired, I wasn't emotionally available. If I wanted a quiet Friday night, I wasn't spontaneous enough. It felt like I was failing tests nobody had told me I was taking. Then one Friday evening, Miranda sat across from me at the kitchen table. "I've been thinking," she said carefully. "I can tell. I think we need a month apart." I leaned back. A month? I want us to see what life feels like without each other. If we're meant to be together, we'll come back stronger. I studied her face. This wasn't her idea. It sounded rehearsed. "You've already packed, haven't you?" She hesitated. "Yes." I nodded once. "If that's what you want, do it." She blinked. "That's it? What were you expecting? I thought you'd fight for us." "I'm not fighting a test someone else wrote." For a few seconds, she just stared at me. Then she stood, rolled 2 suitcases to the front door, and loaded them into her SUV. I watched from the porch as she drove away toward Lydia's apartment. Standing there, I had one thought. If your marriage needs a test, someone has already started looking for the answer somewhere else. The first morning without Miranda felt strange, not lonely, just quiet. I made coffee, answered emails from clients, and left before sunrise to meet my crew at a warehouse renovation across town. We spent the day replacing rooftop HVAC units, and by the time I got home, I realized something. Nobody had called to argue. Nobody had questioned why I worked late. Nobody had asked why I looked tired. The silence was peaceful. Sunday afternoon, my best friend, Graham Collins, came over carrying barbecue and a 6-pack. He looked around the house and laughed. "So, how's the marriage experiment going?" "So far?" I shrugged. "My blood pressure's lower." He grinned. "I knew that Lydia woman was trouble the first time I met her." "You weren't exactly subtle." "I wasn't trying to be." We spent the afternoon watching baseball, talking business, and planning a fishing trip we'd postponed 3 times because life kept getting in the way. Before leaving, Graham became serious. "Sean." "Yeah?" "If a woman asks for space to figure out whether she wants you." "I know." "She usually already knows." That sentence stayed with me. Monday morning, the 3rd day of our separation, I stopped ignoring the practical side of things. I opened our banking apps, printed statements, and made copies of every shared account. I listed our furniture, savings, vehicles, insurance policies, and household expenses. Not because I wanted a divorce, because I refused to be caught unprepared. After that, I met with a family attorney named Harold Bennett for a consultation. "I hope I never need you," I told him. He smiled. The smartest clients usually say that. He explained my legal position, especially regarding the house I had owned before marriage. When I left his office, I felt calmer, prepared. Around lunchtime, one of my technicians walked into my office holding his phone. "You seen Miranda's Instagram?" "No." He handed me the screen. There she was, standing on the rooftop of an expensive downtown lounge. She wasn't alone. A tall man stood beside her with one arm around her waist. Both of them were smiling straight at the camera. The caption read, "Funny how 3 days can change everything." Within minutes, my phone started buzzing. Friends, family, even an old neighbor. Nobody asked directly what had happened. Most simply wrote things like, "Everything okay?" or "Sorry you're dealing with this." I didn't answer a single message. I looked at the picture one last time, locked my phone, and went back to reviewing contracts. When the workday ended, I drove straight back to Harold Bennett's office. This time, I didn't ask questions. "I want to protect myself," I said. He nodded once. "Then let's start preparing before she realizes you're already 3 steps ahead." By the fourth day, Miranda finally texted me. She didn't apologize. She didn't explain the picture. She simply wrote that the post didn't mean what people thought, and that I shouldn't jump to conclusions before the month was over. I read it once, locked my phone, and went back to work. If she wanted to explain, she knew where I lived. The next afternoon, I got another message. This one surprised me. It was from Lydia. She said she'd been worried about me and asked if I'd meet her for coffee because she hated seeing good people get hurt. I almost laughed. But I agreed, not because I trusted her, because people who think they're smarter than everyone else usually talk too much. We met at a coffee shop near her office. Lydia showed up looking like she was headed to dinner instead of an afternoon coffee. Perfect makeup, designer handbag, a smile that stayed on her face just a little too long. "I'm glad you came," she said. "I was curious." She sighed dramatically. "I've been trying to help Miranda sort through her feelings. I figured, you deserve better than this." "I appreciate the concern." She leaned closer. "I always thought you were too good for her." There it was, straight to the point. I kept my expression neutral. "You think so?" "I do. You're successful, responsible. Any woman would be lucky." "I thought you were Miranda's friend." "I am. But sometimes people throw away good things." She reached across the table and briefly touched my hand. I moved my coffee instead. Her smile faltered for half a second. Then she kept talking. "You know Brandon has been interested in Miranda for a while." I looked up. "A while?" She froze. "Well, I mean recently." "No," I said calmly. "You said a while." She tried to recover. "They met before all this happened. Before the separation?" She realized what she'd admitted. "It wasn't like that." I nodded slowly. "It usually isn't." The conversation ended 10 minutes later. She hugged me when we left. I let my arms stay at my sides. Driving home, I replayed every word. Brandon hadn't appeared on day 3. He'd been around before Miranda ever suggested the separation. That night, I checked our shared credit card account. 3 charges caught my attention immediately: a steakhouse, a wine bar, a boutique hotel, all within the first 3 days after Miranda left. I checked the dates again. The hotel reservation had been paid for the evening before that Instagram picture was posted. So the photo wasn't the beginning. It was simply the first time they stopped hiding. I printed every statement. Then I called Harold Bennett. "I think my wife planned this before she ever packed her bags." His answer came without hesitation. "Bring me everything tomorrow morning." I already had the folder sitting on my desk. The next morning, I dropped a thick folder onto Harold Bennett's desk. He flipped through the bank statements, hotel receipt, and copies of the social media post without saying much. After 20 minutes, he closed the file. "When did she ask for the separation?" "Friday night." "And the hotel?" "The reservation was made before she even left the house." He nodded. "That matters." "It wasn't a test," I said. "No," Harold replied. "It looks like she wanted permission without accepting responsibility." That was all I needed to hear. I told him to begin preparing the divorce papers. No delays, no second chances, no waiting 30 days for some fake experiment to end. Over the next week, Miranda acted like nothing serious was happening. She sent me casual messages asking how work was going. Another day, she wrote that she hoped I was using the time to reflect. I answered only when I had to. "The air conditioner is being serviced Thursday." The property tax notice came in. Nothing else. Not once did I ask where she was. Not once did I ask about Brandon. She was waiting for jealousy. I wasn't giving it to her. That seemed to bother her more than if I had yelled. One evening she called. "You've been distant. We're separated. That's what you wanted. I thought you'd at least check on me. I assumed Brandon was keeping you company." Silence. Then she cleared her throat. "You're making assumptions." "I'm making observations." She ended the call first. Meanwhile, Lydia became impossible to ignore. She texted every couple of days. She asked if I wanted dinner. She sent a picture of herself hiking with the caption that fresh air helped clear the mind. Another day, she suggested we grab drinks because everyone deserves someone to talk to. I kept my replies short. Busy? Maybe another time. Thanks. Just enough to keep her talking. Every message made her more confident. She believed I was slowly warming up to her. Graham thought it was hilarious. We were replacing an air handler one afternoon when I showed him another message. He laughed so hard he nearly dropped his wrench. She really thinks she's next in line. Looks that way. You know what the funny part is? What? She thinks she's running the game. I smiled. She's not. That Friday, Harold called. The paperwork is finished. Good. When do you want to serve her? I looked at the calendar. Miranda's month-long test wasn't even halfway over. Monday morning. Harold paused. You're sure? I've been sure since day 3. By then, I wasn't reacting anymore. I was simply finishing a decision Miranda had already made when she asked for that month apart. Monday morning, Miranda was served at her office. I knew the exact time because Harold called me 10 minutes later. It's done. I thanked him and went back to supervising an installation at a shopping center. About 45 minutes later, my phone exploded with calls. I ignored the first 3. The 4th came immediately after. I answered. What is this? Miranda demanded. You'll have to be more specific. The divorce papers. Yes? You filed for divorce? You asked for a month apart. You spent day 3 posting with another man. Her voice sharpened. We agreed to a separation. No, you asked for one. That gave me space. It didn't give you permission to start another relationship. You don't even know what happened. I know enough. There was a long pause. Finally, she asked, Who's been talking to you? Your own decisions. You've been spying on me. I've been paying attention. She took a deep breath. Brandon is just someone I've been getting to know. You were getting to know him before you packed your suitcase. Silence. I let it hang there. You've got it all wrong, she finally said. Then explain the hotel reservation. Another silence. You looked at our credit card? I looked at money I helped earn. It wasn't what you think. Hotels usually aren't booked to discuss career goals, she snapped. You know what? At least Brandon appreciates me. There it is. He listens. I listened. He makes time for me. I built a business that paid for our life. You always cared more about work. I cared about responsibility. He has ambition. I laughed once. You think the man taking you to expensive bars on someone else's timeline is ambitious? You wouldn't understand. No, I understand perfectly. Her voice became cold. I got tired of coming second. You came second to my work? Yes? My work paid the mortgage. You always throw money in my face. No, I remind you where stability came from. Then came the sentence that ended any doubt. I deserve someone with a bigger future. I smiled. I hope Brandon gives you one. Before she could answer, I ended the call. That evening, Graham came over. How'd she take it? About as well as you'd expect. He sat down at my kitchen island. Regret? None. What now? Now the lawyers finish what she started. As Graham reached for another slice of pizza, my phone lit up again. This time, it wasn't Miranda. It was Lydia. Her message was short. I heard what happened today. If you need someone beside you through all this, I'm here. I looked at the screen for a moment. Then I smiled. She still thought she was walking toward a happy ending. She had no idea she was walking straight into the truth. The divorce moved faster than Miranda expected. She hired an attorney within a week and immediately demanded half the house. That lasted about 10 minutes. The deed showed I had purchased it 2 years before our wedding. Every mortgage payment came from my account. The renovations had been paid for through my business long before she ever moved in. Harold looked at me after the first mediation. She's asking for things she knows she can't get. Why? Because she's hoping you'll get tired and settle. I won't. I didn't think you would. Miranda tried a different approach after that. One evening she called sounding calmer than before. We don't have to destroy each other. I agree. So, let's stop making this ugly. I didn't. You filed for divorce. You posted another man 3 days after leaving. It wasn't serious. It was serious enough to put him on social media. She sighed. I made mistakes. You made choices. They're the same thing. No. She didn't have an answer. While Miranda was trying to soften the divorce, Lydia became bolder. She stopped pretending to be subtle. One Friday afternoon, she texted that she'd reserved a table at a new Italian restaurant and thought I deserved one good evening after everything I'd been through. I accepted. Not because I wanted dinner, because I wanted confirmation. Graham raised an eyebrow when I told him. You finally saying yes? I'm collecting the last piece. What piece? The one where she tells on herself. He laughed. You've become scary calm. I've just stopped reacting. Dinner went exactly how I expected. Lydia arrived wearing a dress that belonged at a cocktail party instead of a neighborhood restaurant. She smiled the entire evening. You seem different. I probably am. I like it. She reached across the table. You know, I've been hoping we'd end up here. I figured. I always thought Miranda took you for granted. Did you? I told her more than once she didn't appreciate what she had. I let her keep talking. People reveal the most when they think they're winning. She sipped her wine before smiling. Honestly, if she hadn't posted that picture with Brandon so quickly, you probably would have chased her. I looked directly at her. So, posting it was important? She froze. I didn't mean... You told her to do it, didn't you? Her smile disappeared. I only suggested she make you realize what you were losing. So you encouraged it. I was trying to help her. Or help yourself? She looked away. For the first time since I'd met her, Lydia had nothing clever to say. I already had my answer. The only thing left was making sure Miranda heard it too. The next morning, I sent Miranda one short message. If you want the truth about how this started, meet me at Harbor House Cafe at 6 tonight. Lydia will be there. She replied almost immediately. What truth? You'll hear it yourself. That was all I sent. Lydia arrived first. She smiled as she sat down across from me. I'm glad you wanted to see me again. I had one more conversation to finish. I was hoping you'd say that. She looked genuinely excited. For weeks, she'd convinced herself this was leading somewhere. A waiter brought our drinks. She leaned forward. So, where do we go from here? I've been wondering the same thing. Before she could answer, the cafe door opened. Miranda walked in. The smile disappeared from Lydia's face instantly. What is she doing here? She asked. I invited her. Miranda stopped beside the table. You said Lydia had something to tell me. Lydia stood up. Sean, what is this? I stayed seated. A conversation that should have happened months ago. Miranda looked from Lydia to me. What's going on? I folded my hands on the table. Lydia, yesterday you told me Miranda would have never posted that picture if you hadn't suggested it. I never... You also admitted you wanted me to think I'd already lost my marriage. Lydia's face turned pale. I was trying to help. Miranda frowned. Help who? You, Lydia said quickly. You kept saying Sean never fought for you. I never told you to push me toward Brandon. You didn't have to. You kept complaining. Miranda stared at her. What are you talking about? Lydia spoke too fast. I only said posting one picture would make Sean jealous. I thought he'd come running back. The words hung in the air. Miranda slowly turned toward her. You told me that would wake him up. It should have. You told me Brandon would make Sean realize my value. I was trying to save your marriage. I finally stood. No! Both women looked at me. You were trying to control it. Neither of them answered. I reached into my jacket and placed my wedding ring on the table. I don't hate either of you. Miranda opened her mouth. I raised a hand. But I don't build a future with people who play games. She looked like she wanted to argue. Instead, she whispered, Sean, it's over. I turned toward the exit. Behind me, Miranda's voice rose. Lydia, tell me you didn't plan this. Then Lydia started defending herself. I didn't stay to hear the rest. Walking out felt lighter than walking in. For the first time in months, I wasn't leaving a problem behind. I was leaving it exactly where it belonged. The divorce was finalized just under 4 months later. There wasn't much left to argue about. The house stayed with me because I'd bought it before the marriage. My business remained mine. We divided the shared savings fairly, and Miranda kept her car and personal belongings. When we signed the last documents, she looked across the conference table. I never thought it would end like this. It ended the day you stopped protecting the marriage. She lowered her eyes. I thought the separation would make us appreciate each other. No, I said calmly. You thought it would make me compete for you. She didn't deny it. For the first time since everything began, she looked tired instead of angry. I'm sorry. I believe you are. Is there any chance? I shook my head before she could finish. You don't get a second first marriage. Neither of us said another word. A month later, Graham called me. "You hear about Brandon?" "No. He quit answering Miranda's calls weeks ago." I wasn't surprised. Someone willing to step into another man's marriage usually isn't looking for forever. A few days after that, I heard Lydia had transferred to another office. Apparently, Miranda had told several coworkers exactly how Lydia pushed her to post that picture online and kept encouraging her to make me jealous. People started keeping their distance. Manipulating your friends isn't a good career move. One Saturday morning, someone knocked on my front door. It was Miranda. She looked nothing like the confident woman who had driven away with 2 suitcases. "I just wanted to talk." "We already did." "I know I was wrong." "You were." "I listened to the wrong person." "You still made the decisions." She nodded slowly. "I know." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she asked quietly, "Do you ever miss us?" "I miss who I thought we were." That answer was enough. She gave a small nod, turned around, and walked back to her car. I never saw her again. Life settled down after that. I expanded the business, hired 2 more technicians, and finally took the fishing trip Graham had been talking about for years. The house became peaceful again. Not because someone left, because the drama left with them. Sometimes people ask me if I regret not fighting harder when Miranda asked for that month apart. I always give them the same answer. A marriage isn't proven by walking away from it. She wanted a month to test our marriage. She only needed 3 days to tell me the answer. I simply refused to ignore it. Thank you for watching.